Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really massive set of ideas that can feel overwhelming, honestly, but our goal is to make them clear, make them something you can grapple with.
We are indeed. We're plunging into Friedrich Nietzsche's Thus Spoke Zarathustra, specifically some key excerpts. This is a work that, well, it really shook the 20th century and frankly still shapes how we talk about morals, power, identity.
Absolutely.
And our sources today, they give us both the core philosophy, the big concepts like the Superman, the revaluation of values, but also this surprisingly personal angle, the almost revealed, intensely felt context of its creation.
Right. It doesn't read like your typical philosophy text, does it? It feels more like a prophecy almost, an urgent message demanding we look at ourselves and reach for something, well, something more. So our mission today is to cut through some of the, let's say, the noise and the controversy that often surrounds this book. We want to unpack the core demand here, the call for humanity to surpass itself. What is this ideal, the Übermensch or Superman, and what kind of ethical shift does it require? It's a lot to get into.
It is. Let's start at the beginning of Zarathustra's journey.
Okay, so Zarathustra, who's the voice of this philosophy, he doesn't start by pointing towards heaven or some afterlife. He starts with a pretty fierce critique of us here on Earth.
Yeah, his opening salvo is really aimed squarely at the moral system he saw around him, what he calls the old system of valuing.
And what's his problem with it exactly? Is it just outdated?
It's deeper than that. The fascinating thing is his critique isn't that traditional morality leads to, say, chaos or unhappiness in the way we usually think. It's that it leads to stagnation, to a lessening of human potential. Yes. The sources are very clear. He argues the current system is fundamentally built on weakness. It has, and I'm quoting here, put in ban all that is beautiful, strong, proud, and powerful. It's a system, in his view, created by those who prioritize comfort and sheer survival over actual excellence or greatness.
Okay, so if the system values weakness, then weakness is what you get. That's the logic.
Precisely. The result, as the text puts it, is a weak, suffering, and modern race.
Wow, that's quite a statement. It turns things completely on their head, doesn't it? I mean, things like humility, compassion, caring for the suffering, often seen as the highest virtues he's recasting them as symptoms of decline.
That's exactly it, as forces that actually hold back the potential for greatness. The argument is that these values, even though they seem kind and benevolent, systematically chip away at anything that might promote or elevate the individual or humanity itself. They're like a psychological brake.
So you can't just tinker with it. You need a whole new system.
A total reversal, according to Zarathustra.
Yep.
A new table of valuations placed over mankind. Something that demands a goal beyond just being human as we currently are.
And that goal, the justification for everything, is the Übermensch, the Superman. Now, we hear that word and we immediately think, well, comics, right?
Right, and we need to strip that away completely. It's crucial. The text is very explicit. The Superman isn't some sci-fi figure, not a new species in a Darwinian sense. It's defined as a potential, something that people right now could realize with all their spiritual and physical energies.
Okay, so it's attainable by us.
If we're willing to adopt these new, very demanding values, yes. The Superman is the ideal. The strong, mighty, and magnificent man overflowing with life and elevated to his zenith. Complete self-mastery, life affirmation.
Realized here, on Earth, not in some afterlife. It means accepting this world, is it?
Exactly. And the philosophical engine for this is starkly simple. A new moral compass. All that proceeds from power is good. All that springs from weakness is bad.
That's blunt.
It is. And it anchors everything to the physical, the experiential. The Superman is presented as the immediate meaning of the earth. You see how it replaces traditional religion? Yeah, completely. If God is dead, as the famous line goes, then the ultimate sin isn't blasphemy against God anymore. It's blasphemy against the earth, valuing the unknowable higher than the meaning of the earth. That's the new sin, rejecting your potential, rejecting reality itself by wishing for something else.
Okay, and that ties directly into something else mentioned early on, this idea that you can't reach this spiritual height without a certain physical foundation. Great healthiness, the text calls it.
Yes, great healthiness.
Yeah.
And it's not just, not being sick. It's presented as a fundamental condition, necessary, physiological, described as being stronger, sharper, tougher, bolder.
Stronger, sharper, tougher, bolder.
But crucially, it's not static. It's not something you just have. The text says you must constantly acquire and must acquire because one unceasingly sacrifices it again and must sacrifice it.
That sounds relentless. Like it's not just health, but a kind of ongoing active state, almost like an athletic requirement for the soul. You spend your strength creating, overcoming,
Right.
and then you have to immediately build up even more just to spend it again.
That's a great way to put it. This kind of robust, almost dangerously intense health is what's needed for the Argonauts of the ideal, as the text calls them.
Argonauts of the ideal, like explorers.
Exactly. Bold explorers who are strong enough, healthy enough to navigate the entire range of human experience and values. They need the physical and psychological fortitude to experience being a conqueror, an artist, a saint, a scholar, maybe even a destroyer, to take it all in, absorb it, synthesize it, without cracking under the pressure.
So great healthiness is the ship that lets you sail those treacherous seas of experience.
You could say that. It's the tool that allows the soul to bear the immense weight of existence, its contradictions, its demands.
Okay, so we have this philosophy of immense strength, overflowing life, great healthiness. But we should pause here, because the sources also give us this really striking contrast, don't they? The life of the man behind Zarathustra.
It's a profound irony, yeah. The man advocating for this peak of human potential was himself grappling with incredible frailty. We know he was suffering deeply,
Physically.
both physically and emotionally. Painful personal experiences, huge disappointments with friends, debilitating chronic illness. The sources even mention his struggle with needing chloral hydrate, a sedative, just to cope.
So this philosophy of ultimate strength wasn't born from a place of ease or power, but maybe from the struggle against its opposite, against weakness.
It certainly seems that way. And at the very origin of Zarathustra, the text itself seems rooted in intense loneliness.
Loneliness, how so?
Well, he was apparently searching desperately for an ideal friend, someone who could actually understand him, follow him down this incredibly difficult path of rethinking everything.
And he couldn't find anyone.
Apparently not. Nobody who could keep pace. So, finding no one in the real world, he essentially created Zarathustra. Zarathustra became the embodiment of that ideal world, the majestic philosopher, the preacher, the perfect companion for his own ideas, the mouthpiece for his gospel.
Wow, and the way it was written, it wasn't like a careful academic exercise, was it?
Not at all. The sources describe these short, intense bursts of creativity, like the first part written in about 10 days, the others similarly quickly. He often described it feeling like a revelation.
A revelation.
Yeah, like ideas suddenly flash up like lightning. He felt, in his words, like the mere incarnation mouthpiece or medium of an almighty power.
That intensity really comes through in the text. It feels urgent.
It does. And it underscores this idea of transformation being something almost explosive.
Yeah.
Which leads us to one of the most famous parts, the 3 metamorphoses of the spirit. This is presented as the necessary journey the spirit must take to become capable of creating new values.
Okay, the 3 metamorphoses, let's break them down. It starts with the camel.
The camel, yes. The load-bearing spirit. This is the spirit defined by reverence, by its willingness to take on the heaviest burdens. Think of duties, obligations, traditions. The great command, thou shalt.
Thou shalt.
The camel accepts these burdens, carries them into the wilderness. It's about learning discipline, respecting inherited values, enduring hardship. It's necessary training wheels, you could say, but it's not freedom.
Right, because just obeying isn't enough for this philosophy, so the camel needs to change. In the wilderness, it becomes the lion.
The lion,
Yeah.
the destroyer.
Yeah.
The lion seeks freedom, but more than that, it seeks lordship in its own wilderness. It wants to be master.
And its enemy.
Its great enemy is the great dragon called thou shalt. This dragon glitters with the values of 1,000 years. All the old commandments, dogmas, societal rules that block individual freedom. The lion confronts this dragon and declares, I will.
I will. So the lion breaks the old rules. It says no to thou shalt.
Exactly. It achieves freedom from the old ways. It smashes the old tables of value.
But, and this seems crucial, the lion isn't the final stage either, is it? Capturing freedom isn't the same as creating something new. Why isn't the lion the goal?
That's a really important point. The lion has negative freedom from. But freedom to create requires a different kind of energy, an energy that isn't sort of defined by the thing it just fought. The lion, powerful as it is still reacting against the dragon.
Ah, okay, so its I will is still tied to the thou shalt it rejected.
Precisely. If the lion stayed the final stage, it might only create reactive values, maybe just inversions of the old ones, still fueled by the fight, by resentment. To truly create something new, something affirmative, the lion has to transform again. It must become the child.
The child, that seems like a step backward almost, from a powerful lion to a child.
It represents something specific. Innocence and forgetfulness, a new beginning, a game, a self-rolling wheel, a first motion, a sacred yay.
Innocence and forgetfulness. So the key is letting go of the struggle, forgetting the dragon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The child isn't burdened by the weight the camel carried or the anger the lion felt. It can finally say a pure yes to life. Without resentment, without baggage, it's pure affirmation. It starts the wheel rolling on its own. That's the creative act, creating new values from a place of innocence and play, not opposition.
Camel to lion to child.
Yeah.
Obedience, then destruction, then creation. That's the path to self-overcoming.
That's the map laid out.
And this whole spiritual journey, it's always grounded, isn't it? Back in the physical, back in the body, rejecting what the text calls backward world men.
Yes, those backward world men. These are the figures throughout history who, according to Zarathustra, despised the body, saw it as meager, ghastly, and famished.
And they invented heavens and afterlives.
Precisely to escape the earth, escape the body, escape the struggle of physical existence. Zarathustra flips this entirely. The body isn't something to be escaped. It's something to be celebrated, listened to.
He calls the body the big sagacity, big wisdom, the spirit, the ego, that's secondary.
That's the radical claim. The body, our whole physiological being, that's the source of real wisdom, real drives. The conscious mind, the spirit or ego, is just its little instrument and plaything, a tool,
A tool.
a hand, an articulation. The true self, the driving force, is embodied, holistic. It saith not ego, but doeth it. The self does. It's the creator, and it created the intellect as a tool, a hand to its will.
So when does the self turn against the body?
According to the text, it happens when the self loses its creative power, when it can't make that leap towards the Superman. Then its frustration turns outward, turns into hatred for the world, for the body, for the earth itself. Despising the body is a symptom of a failed creative will.
Okay, so we have this intense drive towards self-overcoming, towards the Superman. But a lot of the philosophy is also defined by what it wants to avoid. Zarathustra comes down from his mountain solitude to teach this, but also to warn, right?
Absolutely. He descends to teach that the Superman is the meaning of the earth, but just as importantly, to warn against what he sees as the twin dangers that prevent this: complacency and the crushing weight of the collective.
He has some pretty harsh words for humanity as it is, comparing man to an ape.
Yes, saying man is a laughingstock or a shame compared to the potential of the Superman, just as the ape is to current man. His first warning is against super-earthly hopes.
Those desires for heaven or an afterlife we just talked about?
Exactly. He calls people who hold on to those hopes despisers of life. They're looking for an escape route from the challenges and possibilities of this life, this earth.
And the ultimate embodiment of failing to strive, of choosing escape and comfort. That's the figure of the last man.
The last man, yes. If the Superman is the peak, the last man is the absolute pit. He's described chillingly as the most despicable man who can no longer despise himself.
Can no longer despise himself, meaning he's sunk so low he doesn't even recognize it?
Or he's so perfectly comfortable, so mediocre, that there's nothing to despise from his perspective. He represents humanity achieving, well, total, small-minded comfort, safety above all else. They famously declare, "We've discovered happiness." And then the text adds this devastating detail, and they blink.
They blink. Just that one word. What does that signify?
It's so powerful, isn't it? It suggests this narrowness of vision, this unwillingness or inability to look at anything difficult, anything long-term, anything beyond immediate petty comfort. A refusal of the horizon. Their happiness is dull, risk-averse.
They've smoothed out all the edges of life?
Completely. They avoid anything too demanding. The text says they're careful not too poor, not too rich, not ruling, not obeying, because all extremes are too burdensome.
It sounds like the ultimate triumph of the herd. Everyone just wants easy comfort, equality, and mediocrity.
That's the ethos. Everyone wanteth the same. Everyone is equal. And if you dare to be different, if you have other sentiments, goeth voluntarily into the madhouse. It's a society that has successfully stamped out the very chaos, the very struggle that Zarathustra believes is necessary for greatness, for a dancing star to be born. It's the perfect environment for the superfluous.
Okay, so that's the danger of individual complacency. But there's another major threat, isn't there? An external structure that facilitates this comfort. The new idol.
The state, famously called the coldest of all cold monsters.
Coldest of all cold monsters. Why?
Because it operates impersonally, and it tells the biggest lie, according to Zarathustra: I, the state, am the people. The text doesn't see the state as, say, a necessary evil for organizing society. It sees it as a deliberate obstacle to individual greatness.
Now, we need to be careful here. This sounds like it could be interpreted in many political ways today. How do we approach this critique impartially? What's the core mechanism being criticized, regardless of left or right?
That's the key question.
Mm.
We have to look at the function described in the text, not map it onto specific modern political parties. The critique centers on the state as a machine, specifically devised for the many too many, for the masses, the superfluous ones we just mentioned.
Okay.
So it's an impartial critique of any large-scale system, whether bureaucratic or authoritarian, that offers security, stability, predictability, in exchange for the individual giving up their unique will, their drive, their creative potential. The state, in this view, swalloweth and cheweth them. It
Right.
homogenizes them.
So its power isn't just laws and police, it's psychological. It offers a bargain, safety for individuality.
That's exactly the mechanism described. The state's trick is that it buys your potential. It purchases the luster of your virtue and the glance of your proud eyes. It makes individual struggle seem pointless, even undesirable, by offering collective security instead. It encourages what the text calls the slow suicide of all is called life,
Slow suicide.
because it drains the life-affirming struggle out of existence. It's called a hellish artifice, a death horse jingling with the trappings of divine honors. People are encouraged to worship this collective structure instead of pursuing their own difficult path.
So for the kind of person Zarathustra values the creator, the potential Superman the state is suffocating. They have to get away from it to even breathe.
That's the implication. The atmosphere is wrong. Liberation isn't just mental, it's almost spatial. Where the state ceaseth, there only commenceth the man who is not superfluous. The fundamental critique is that the state exists to manage and pacify the very striving, the very risk-taking that defines the path towards the Superman. It's an engine for producing the last man, essentially.
Okay, so we've dismantled the old morality, critiqued the state. Now we get to the positive core, the engine driving this new vision, the will to power. We need to really unpack this because it's probably the most famous and most misunderstood concept. It's not just about brute force, is it?
No, not at all. That's a common and frankly quite shallow reading. The will to power in Zarathustra is presented as something much deeper. It's an intrinsic fundamental drive within all life, a cosmological principle almost.
In all life, not just humans.
All life. Zarathustra says, wherever I found a living thing, there found I will to power, and even in the will of the servant found I the will to be master. It's the basic impulse to grow, expand, overcome obstacles, interpret the world, impose form onto chaos, command.
So it's the drive behind, well, everything. Evolution, ambition, art, even understanding.
It's presented that way, yes, as the constant change of every need, the urge to create, to command, and, crucially, to perpetually surpass oneself and one's current state. It's the engine of becoming.
Okay, so if the will to power is the fundamental drive, then creating values, deciding what's good or bad is just an expression of that drive.
Exactly. The will to power becomes the sole basis for all estimations of value. What helps the will to power flourish is good, what hinders it is bad.
Which leads to a pretty shocking conclusion about, well, how about evil and suffering?
It does. The conclusion is that what we often call great evil, struggle, hardship, destruction, the pain of becoming, is actually intrinsic to, inseparable from, the creating good. You can't have the creation of the Superman, the highest value, without the difficulty, the danger, the destruction that overcoming entails. The evil is the necessary friction for the good.
Wow, okay. And this radical rethinking applies directly to things society usually condemns. The text talks about 3 things hitherto best cursed. Zarathustra wants to reweigh them.
Yes, voluptuousness, passion for power, and selfishness. He takes these traditionally sinful or negative concepts and reframes them as potentially noble forces if they spring from strength.
Let's take them one by one. Voluptuousness, sensual pleasure, how is that redeemed? Isn't it usually seen as base, distracting?
Traditional morality often condemns it for exactly that reason, yes. But for Zarathustra's free hearts, voluptuousness is reclaimed as innocent and free. It's the garden happiness of the earth.
Garden happiness.
It's described as a great cordial, a reverently saved wine of wines, but only for the strong, the lion-willed. For the weak, the rabble, it's just a slow fire that consumes them. But for the strong, it's a healthy affirmation of the body, the big sagacity we talked about, an innocent celebration of this life.
Okay. Then passion for power. We touched on will to power, but how is this specific passion viewed? How is it different from just greed or tyranny?
It's framed as the highest drive for the creating one. It's that intense, scorching thirst of my will, not necessarily to dominate other people, though it can involve command, but to command circumstances, command the future, command oneself. It's the ambition to impose meaning, order, and value onto existence.
And that drive then connects to the third cursed thing, selfishness. The text calls it healthy selfishness, even blessed. Now, this is where many people push back, isn't it? Doesn't this just give the powerful an excuse to exploit others?
That is absolutely the critical challenge and the point of controversy. The philosophy argues that the healthy kind, the blessed selfishness, is different. It springeth from the powerful soul. It's seen as a constructive force.
How so?
This blessed selfishness is what banishes weakness from the self. It gets rid of the cowardly and contemptible, the sighing, the complaining, the all-too-patient submission. It's contrasted sharply with this sickly selfishness of the weak, the thief who is just hungry for what others possess.
So it's not about taking from others, but securing your own foundation.
Exactly. It's the self-possession required for the bestowing soul. The idea is you must secure your own strength, your own values, fill your own cup first, so that you have something overflowing, something powerful to give back as creation, as love, as new values for the world. You can't bestow what you don't possess.
Okay. That framework leads us directly to maybe the most radical reversal of all, the absolute scorn for pity. Pity is often seen as the cornerstone of humanitarian ethics. Why is it rejected so fiercely here?
It's condemned because it's fundamentally seen as a devaluing force, both for the giver and the receiver. Zarathustra cries out, "Woe unto all loving ones who have not an elevation which is above their pity."
An elevation above pity.
The argument is sort of twofold. First, pity often arises not from pure compassion, but from the pity giver's own lack, maybe their own lack of joy, or a subtle desire to feel superior by looking down on the sufferer. It makes the giver feel good, perhaps, but it doesn't truly help the other elevate themselves.
And the second part, how does it harm the receiver?
It wounds their pride. The text is brutal on this point. Great obligations do not make grateful, but revengeful. Receiving pity, being the object of it, is seen as inherently diminishing. It makes the air stifling for free souls because it reinforces inequality and dependency rather than encouraging the sufferer to overcome their own situation through their own strength.
This is really challenging stuff, and the text takes it to an extreme, linking God's death itself to pity.
That's the absolute peak of the critique, yes. There's a parable where the devil says, "Even God hath his hell. It is his love for man." And then the ultimate statement follows later. God is dead. Of his pity for man hath God died. Wow. Pity is portrayed as the ultimate corrosive, weakening form of love. So powerful in its desire to alleviate suffering, so maybe suffocating, that it ends up destroying even the highest being, God himself, who practices it excessively. It's the final rejection of passive, caregiving love in favor of a love that demands strength and overcoming.
So if pity is out and traditional love is suspect, what kind of relationships are left for the person striving towards the Superman? How do they connect with others?
Love isn't rejected entirely, but it's radically redefined. The highest form of love is directed towards the potential, towards the furthest and future ones, meaning towards the Superman ideal itself.
So love people for what they could become.
In a sense, yes. And personal relationships have to serve that goal of transcendence. Friendship, for example, gets a complete makeover. And your friend Zarathustra says, you should have your best enemy.
Best enemy, not best supporter.
Best enemy. The friend isn't there primarily for comfort or agreement. The friend is supposed to be an arrow and a longing for the Superman. They challenge you, push you, force you to constantly overcome yourself. They're a spur to greatness, not a cushion.
Okay. And marriage, how does that fit in?
Similarly transformed.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be about companionship or societal norms. It should be the will to marriage, specifically for the sake of creating something greater children who might embody or reach towards the Superman.
So it's a creative, future-oriented act.
Yes. And even the best love isn't meant to be perfectly smooth or comfortable. The text says, bitterness is in the cup even of the best love. Thus doth it cause longing for the Superman. That very difficulty, that bitterness or tension within love, is what fuels the creative dissatisfaction, the longing that pushes individuals beyond their comfortable pairing towards creating something higher. Hashtag outcheck outro.
Right. So what we've really explored today is, well, it's more than just a different philosophy. It feels like a declaration of war, almost. A war against comfort, against safety, against settling for inherited virtues. It demands constant self-creation, constant struggle.
It really does. The ultimate summary, perhaps, of Zarathustra's new code, the new table he wants to give humanity, is crystallized in that command.
become hard.
Become hard.
And this hardness, it's important to clarify, isn't just about being callous or cruel. It's presented as the necessary resilience, the strength needed to actually imprint your own will, your own values, onto the world to write it on brass. Harder than brass, nobler than brass, as the text says. It's the inner toughness required to resist the constant pull downwards, the spirit of gravity that wants everything to just fall, settle, become comfortable, become the last man.
It's the absolute refusal of ease.
That's the heart of it, which leaves us with a really fascinating, maybe even poignant final thought. It touches on the deep human tension right inside this seemingly superhuman philosophy.
Zarathustra, the teacher, the one advocating for the Superman and the will to power, he recognizes that this very aspiration constantly pulls him upwards, away from everyday humanity, away from the state, the marketplace, the pity, the last man he warns against.
Right, he needs that distance to maintain the vision.
Yes, but he also knows he must stay connected to the earth, the very reality he aims to transform. There's a line in our sources where he reflects on this, saying he must live blindly among men as if I knew them not, that my hand may not entirely lose belief in firmness.
Wow, that my hand may not entirely lose belief in firmness.
That's powerful. It's the struggle of the idealist, isn't it?
It's the core tension, perhaps. If your highest goal, your vision of the Superman, pulls you into a kind of isolated transcendence, how do you keep your feet on the ground? How do you make sure your hands, reaching for those lofty ideals, remain strong and steady enough to actually work with the messy, concrete reality of the world and the people in it? How do you transform the earth without losing touch with it? That's the challenge, not just rising above, but staying grounded enough to pull humanity up with you.
Exactly. That tension between the radical call to transcend and the necessity of earthly engagement, that might be the deepest question this whole philosophy leaves for you, the listener, to wrestle with.